Hello and welcome. I'm Jasmin Junge, also known as Kuschelirmel, and today I want to show you how to add makeup to any picture that you would like in Photoshop. As an example, I'm using my image portrait of a girl. So first, let me show you some of the layers that I have here. So we have the frame, some highlights and shadows, some color correction, then of course the girl itself and the background textures. And today we're going to simply talk about the girl, and I have it here as a smart object, which I really like to do because that way you can retain all the information and add lots of layers on top, and you can still, with a double click as you've just seen here, go inside and change anything without being disturbed by whatever comes on top. So for the tutorial, I'm going to show it to you on a new document so I don't mess up my original. Here I have simply extracted the girl again with all the layers intact and made the background visible again. What you can see here are the different things that I have done to the picture. The eye color has one layer group, the eye makeup has one, and then the lips is another one. So what I want to show you today is how to add the makeup and also the makeup on the lips. Eye color I think is something for an extra tutorial at some point. So to that end I'm going to make these two invisible and zoom in on the eyes. So to 100% so that we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to make a new group. Call it again eye makeup. If you do a lot of photo manipulations and a lot of layers, I really advise you to group them together and to give those groups and also the layers sometimes meaningful names, because otherwise you're going to really lose. I also like to, as you can see here, call the layer of the stock that I used by the name of the artist that I used it from. So usually it's from DA, so I will put the DA nickname here so that I can easily find it again, even if I decide to not do anything for half a year or something. So let's start off. We create a new layer down here, and then we take the brush tool or any other tool that you would like. I mean, you can also use a path or use a brush other than those normal paint brushes, which I will show you in a bit. Anything basically goes. For me it is easiest because I have a tablet, a pressure sensitive tablet to work with, a normal pressure sensitive brush. So this is one of my photo manip brushes that are available on my website for you to download if you like, but they are basically just the normal ones that come with Photoshop anyway, maybe with some different settings. So what I like to do is to take this hard round brush, and then depending on if I need it softer, then I will go down with the hardness, or in this case I will need it to be really defined, with a defined edge, so I will keep the hardness at 100%. Then I will go and choose some sort of color. Oh, it's on this one. It doesn't really matter which color you choose at this moment. I will choose something red because I know that it's going to be a red makeup, but it doesn't really matter if you pick it from here or here or here. I use something very saturated now just so that I can see what I'm doing. Other than that, it's really not that important because we're going to keep each new color that we choose on a separate layer in order to be able to change it whenever we like. Okay, let me show you what I mean. Okay, what I'm what I thought would look nice is to go in and just paint something here. And now you can see if you paint it just like that, it will cover everything. And this is something that we do not want, to just blindly cover everything. That is why I am going to switch the blend mode from normal to hard light. You can choose anything else as well. I mean, that really depends on what you want for your makeup. I want the colors to really pop, so I choose hard light. If you want a softer effect, you can go for soft light and maybe not such saturated colors. So now you can already see that it's changing somewhat. I'm going down here as well. I'm not going to do a really super great job now, because that's basically also the reason that I chose to do this as this kind of video, because I saw that the recording of the original has me fiddling with this for what seems like hours. So the only thing that I will actually do now is to show you that in that case I use actually the eraser, even though normally I would do everything with a mask. But in that case it's a question of figuring out where you want this makeup to be, and for me that works quite well with the combination of brush and eraser. But of course a layer mask works just as well. And if you see that you need to be a bit more soft, you can go down with the opacity of the brush and then get rid of some of this harsh lines here. And try to be careful not to go over the hair. It will look really strange later. So I'm going to get this out. So something like this. I think for now this is sufficient. So now you can see what I have done here. I went a bit over here. I do not want the makeup here as well, because I want this one to be a highlight later. But this is really up to personal taste. So do whatever you like. You can put designs, you can put whatever actually. So, and of course you need to do the same then on the other eye, which also I will not do in this case, just to show you how I would be going about this. So now when I have set out how I want it to look, I will so much for not fiddling, huh? I will check if I still like the color, and for that I'm going to push Ctrl and U to bring up the Hue saturation dialog. You can also do this with an adjustment layer clipped to the top. That way you can change it later also. But for small things like this, I like to do it on the layer itself. So now when you change the hue, you can see how the color changes. So you can use this to adjust the color. The next slider, of course, for the saturation, depending on what you're going for. And then the brightness. And that way you can basically get any color that you like. And this is also the reason why I do not use two colors on one layer, because I like to fiddle with them afterward. And if I put two colors, then it will actually change both, and that doesn't really work for me. So what I do to get some more color into this is to add a second layer, also put it to hard light, and then zoom back in. And then I can see here that I probably want some more definition in those creases where there should be some more shadows. So I take my brush, and just brush some in. And again, this is not the right color at the moment. I'm just going through and then adjusting it later. Of course, you can try to figure it out now. Also, maybe choose something a bit darker from the start. But all in all, this is basically what I did. So go down with the saturation, go down with the lightness. And this time I leave it on the red. And if you do not like some of your brush strokes, you can always go to Gaussian blur and choose whatever radius feels appropriate. And this is, as I said, a very rough job. Here you can see it goes way beyond where it should be. And it's definitely not such a neat job as with the original, but it's basically what I did. And then I add another layer on color dodge. I'm going to show you what that will do. And for that, I'm actually choosing something lighter and something less saturated to work with. Then I will choose a brush with less opacity, because this effect is really pronounced. And I find it easier to work with if I put less opacity on the brush. Here you can see each time I go over, it starts to glow more or less. And this is how I highlight a lot of times. But you have to be really careful, because since this is such a pronounced glow, it very easily starts to look super fake and super off. So basically use it sparingly. You can also, I'm not someone who knows a lot about makeup, because usually I don't wear any. But I guess you could also that way highlight whatever else you would like. Whatever needs highlighting, which really I do not know one bit about, so I'm going to just leave it at that. So, and zoom out and show you. And this is already, it looks really flashy, I would say. It's not exactly the same as before, but yeah, you get the idea. And the same basic principle, of course, applies if you want to add some of those swirls. Now you can, of course, paint them in if you are so lucky to be talented in that way. Or you can simply use a brush. And here I have Kobe 17 brushes from DeviantArt. And I will show you one example. Maybe, which one is it? I think it was one at the bottom. This one maybe. Go back to 100% opacity. I pick a color now from here. Just, you can still adjust it later, but that's usually a good idea. Put it on a new layer and just tap once and set the layer back to hard light. And now what I often do is to convert it to a smart object, just because I'm a nut for smart objects, and because you can then scale them down and scale them back up again without any quality loss. But in the end, yeah, depends on your workflow, I guess. So what you can do, and there I would suggest that you choose something that flows with the flow of her face. If you put this, I don't know, if you put this here and it crosses the crease on her nose, it will look really, really, really awkward. So just keep it somewhere where it makes at least some sense, and you can always use the triangles here to skew it. Usually you have to, if you pressed Control T for the free transform, and you want these perspective handles, then you just have to press down Control once more, and then you can adjust these. And you can also adjust any of these corners as well. So I'm going to again leave it here, just because I don't want to mess for a long time. And this time I'm going to use a hue saturation layer, so it's on this one. It's probably out of the screen. And then when you press the Alt key, you will see the cursor is changing, and you click in between and it will clip it to the layer. That means that it will only affect the layer below and none of the others. So now you can do the same that we did with the hue saturation command earlier and adjust it to your liking. Then in addition, what I do is I put a layer mask on it and then go back to my hard round brush with the pressure sensitivity and go to black, because white is showing everything, black is showing nothing. And then I brush out what I do not want. For example, this one. There you will have to use some discretion or need to retransform it if you see that it's going over the ear or somewhere where it shouldn't. Just so that here you can see that the hair is over it. There you can also go in here and blend it a bit. So basically. And this is what I did with all the swirls. Now lastly, I want to show you what I did on the lips, because the lips are a bit special. If you look at them in close up, you will see these wonderful highlights here. And if you now use your brush, a bit smaller, hard, set it to hard light again. And if you now go over, and again I'm just doing this really super quickly, then you will see that those highlights get basically washed out completely here. They are just gone, and now it looks really, really fake. And no amount of changing the color, Control U, and changing the saturation or whatever, nothing will really change that. It still looks like she put on something really dull, and especially since I'm only painting part of the lips, and here you see the original reflections of the light, and here you don't, it looks really, really strange. So let me show you what I did. You double click here and go into the layer styles. And now if you go to this blend if box and you go to underlying layer, you can tell it to get these highlights back by just dragging the slider. Now these look a bit off as well, because it cuts off at one specific brightness. So hold down the Alt key and go on the slider, and then you can drag only one half of the slider and get a transition. So now you can put it, for example, like this. Go OK, and then you will also see here that there's a layer style attached, even though you cannot see anything underneath, because it's just a blending mode. And then you can see that it looks much, much more natural again. I hope you enjoyed this video, even though I'm a bit out of practice for not having done one of these for such a long time. but I would still love to hear your comments in the boxes below, and I would really love for you to check out my new blog and website at artofkuschelirmel.de.